So, Clay, I'd like to start with you. You know, Governor Moore made it pretty clear yesterday that he was going to go forward with a redistricting strategy for Maryland before the 2016 elections. And all if with the intention of pushing out Andy Harris. We've talked about this before, but what was interesting this week is that Bill Ferguson, who's the president of the Maryland Senate, and a Democrat as well, has said that he's not in favor of this. It's set up pretty nicely for you Republicans, doesn't it?
I saw that, and I see the fracturing between the two on this issue. Wes Moore, I think, is playing the game that Texas started. Now California's in for redistricting additional seats in. And for the life of me, I don't quite understand why Maryland's doing this just over one seat. He had said that he doesn't want to bend the knee to partisanship, that this map that we have now is gerrymandered. I agree it's gerrymandered, but I think he wants to do this just to get rid of Andy Harris. Now, I saw in a report, Brian Sears reported in Maryland Matters, it was this morning, that I want to get this right. The governor is appointing a 5-member redistricting committee led by Angela Alsobrooks. Brian Frosh is going to be on it. Cumberland Mayor Morris is going to be on it. Adrian Jones, Speaker of the House or her designee, and Brian or Bill Ferguson or his designee. My gosh, that looks partisan to me. Just my gut feeling, without pointing to any evidence, that just seems partisan to me. And to take this on now, we have 10 weeks until session. I think there's a lot of other problems that the General Assembly needs to be concerned with. Now, the governor has the power to call a special session, but he really has to get the cooperation of the leadership. And if Bill Ferguson is really hesitant on this, I think there's a danger there could be a real rift show up, which I don't think should happen if I was a Democrat in an election year to have that happen. I also noticed Brian Sears reported in Maryland Matters this morning, Malia Krober, the director of the Institute of Public Policy at the University of Maryland, just did a poll, and it showed that Wes Moore's disapproval have jumped 12 points in 1 year from 32 to 44%. Among independents, 56% now disapprove of Governor Moore. That's up 33% from a year ago. And nearly half the Maryland voters say, 48% say Maryland's on the wrong track. If I was advising Wes Moore, and I don't do that, I would say, shelve this for a year or so. Do it when we usually do it after the census is done. I said a year or so, I mean 3 or 4 years when the census is out. And just to be clear to everybody, I am a political advisor to Ed Hale for governor, so I come from that school of thought. I'm speaking for myself and not the campaign. So these are really my thoughts.
Hey, Len, I bet you have some thoughts on this.
Dave, we tend to speak in absolute terms on so many things on this show. We are trained to boil pretty complex issues down to binary choices of right and wrong, good and bad, Democrat and Republican. This is one of these issues where I have to say I can see the arguments of both sides. And I know that might not necessarily make for the best podcast theater, but this is one of these issues. For example, I understand why Bill Ferguson is adopting the institutionalist argument. I think he laid out a very credible argument in a 3-page letter they sent to the entire Senate last week, in which he pointed out that this current legislative map has not been vetted by the courts. And if we open up the Pandora's box, we could end up with a map that is just as bad, if not worse. And the timing is such that it could interfere with the upcoming statewide primary elections in June of 2026. So, I mean, Bill has made a point that the timing is challenging. The political risks are something that should be acknowledged. and that we could be putting ourselves at some legal jeopardy. I understand all of that. I also understand Governor Moore's perspective that he is appealing, and this is no secret, to a more national audience. He's also appealing to the base of the Democratic Party, who sees egregious violations of constitutional norms in places like Texas, like North Carolina, and perhaps some other states are considering jumping into the fray, where we going to stand by and let democracy be subverted? No, we have to fight fire with fire. So I understand the market that Governor Moore is playing to. It's both an effort to insert himself into the national conversation, to be positioned as the stalwart defender of democracy, which is a theme of his, and to appeal to the most reflexive partisans within the Democratic Party. I think that there are considerable risks without taking sides on either side. There are risks. First is, if we have a special session, the first item of business that has to come up will be the override of the governor's veto on reparations. That is not an issue that the Democratic legislative majority, that is not an issue that the governor really wants to tackle in this moment when we want to be fighting the Republicans and the Trump agenda. That is a more inward facing internecine battle within our own Democratic Party. And it's a battle that really kind of expanded between the governor and the legislature last spring over how it all went down. I am sensitive to what this could mean for the timing of our upcoming elections. It could push the primaries back a month, 2 months, and that uncertainty could have political repercussions. Ultimately, I would certainly love to see Andy Harris go. He is a terrible congressman. I have said publicly and in conversation with each of you, we would be better served if we had a stationary mud fence representing the 1st Congressional District in the House of Representatives than Andy Harris, because at least that mud fence would not actively work against the economic interests of farmers, watermen, teachers, and other small business owners in on the Eastern Shore and along the 95 corridor. I'm not sure whether the solution here is practical given these other statutory and political and timing considerations. It'll be interesting to see, because this is another example of a rift between the governor and the General Assembly. And for Maryland, for the Democratic Party to hold commanding control of all 3 offices, it's been interesting to watch that relationship between the governor and our presiding officers fray along the margins over the last year or so. And I think this is one more thing in which we're seeing some real daylight between the governor and Senator Ferguson.
Clay, just to follow up a little bit, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no real downside for Governor Moore, is there? I mean, he might lose the battle, but this is still going to be a Democratic state.
I think he risks the danger, and I agree with what Len said about delaying the delays that this could cause, especially the primary election. I know ballots have to get printed. I think it's 45 days before the general election, so there could be some real problems here. I think the message that could go out, seeing that his decline in popularity among independents has been very apparent, I think he risks alienating some of those voters. And in the latest poll, 17% of Democrats now disapprove of him. He doesn't want those numbers to keep increasing, and I think this is a big gamble. I happen to agree with Bill Ferguson's, or President Ferguson's view on this, that for his purposes, there's certainty in the way things exist, and the integrity of the process, as Len put it. I think this needs to wait till 2030, just like we've always done it.
I will say, Dave, just to jump in, I mean, just building on what Clay said, we're going to see Abigail Spanberger win a commanding victory in Virginia today over Winsome Sears, and I think we're going to see it'll be a little bit closer in New Jersey because the Republicans have fielded a more credible candidate up there, but we're going to see Mikey Sherrill actually win, by somewhere between 5 and 8 percentage points after Jack Ciattarelli. And the one thing that these two candidates have managed to do, which is to define this election along economic and affordability lines. Spanberger in particular has really honed in on the message of affordability and jobs. And we saw in the same poll that Clay referenced just a couple minutes ago that, the Cromer poll showed that these are paramount concerns: the affordability of electricity, the affordability of housing, the affordability of food and other groceries. This is what is first and foremost on the minds of the Maryland electorate, just as it is with the electorates of all 50 states. And if I were advising Governor Moore, and I'm not, I'm a friend, but I'm not on his campaign team, I would say resist the temptation to do anything that does not directly pertain to the issue of the economy as defined by the affordability of goods and services and the amount of money that Maryland consumers have in their pocket versus what their expectations are.
Clay, I've gotten some feedback recently on the program, and if people tune in at the wrong time, they think it's a sports show when we talk about our spots. But you're free to say whatever comes to mind for what happened in the last week or so. What got your attention?
First of all, this coming week, I want to say happy birthday to Mr. Foxwell here, who I think turns 39 years old again. So happy birthday, Len. I really have two winners this week. One is Howard University. Mackenzie Scott, billionaire, gave $80 million to the college, and I think that will go a long way to put towards different educational programs that the university needs, and I applaud her for that. My other winner is the American Patriotic Monuments Organization. It's headed up by a former waterman and artist named Tillman Hemsley. Back a couple of years ago, I was working with Vince Leggett to try and get a Black Waterman's Memorial up here on the shore. And after Vince died, I sort of lost contact with that organization. Fortunately, Tillman has taken up the cause. He's having a fundraiser this week. They're trying to raise $500,000 for the monument. And I applaud that, support that. My loser this week is federal workers. We're now tied for the longest shutdown in the history of this country. I feel sorry for them. I hopefully this will come to a conclusion soon. I know my son has been working for 35 days without a paycheck. Hopefully Congress will come together and solve this thing soon, because I think it's going to start to get real ugly real quick if they don't come to some sort of conclusion.
Len?
I think the big story in Maryland politics, with all due respect to the scuffle that's occurring now between the Senate president and the governor, is the arrest of State Senator Dahlia Attar. Now, I've been kicking around politics in this state now for over 30 years, and that's almost as long as Clayton Mitchell's been roaming the halls of Annapolis. I don't think I've seen a scandal quite this flamboyant. For those of you watching this who may not have picked up on the news, she conspired with State Senator Attar, represents the 41st district in Baltimore City. It's the Pimlico Park Heights area of the northwest corner of Baltimore. And she conspired, according to the indictment, with her brother and with a politically connected Baltimore Police Department officer to go in and videotape, surreptitiously record the, shall we say, very private personal activities of a consultant with whom they had had a falling out, in an effort to catch her having an affair with a married man, and then present the evidence to them to essentially coerce them into silence rather than speaking out against her campaign in 2018. That's the best I can do to put this in a box because it's a bizarre story, but suffice to say, Senator Attar's career appears to be absolutely ruined. Her freedom is very much in doubt, and this is just one more reason why there is a disconnect between the government and the governed, and why public trust in institutions is at an all-time low at a time when people are struggling just to put food on the table, keep a roof over their head, and save just a few bucks for retirement or their kids' college funds. We have people who are our purported leaders engaging in these types of sophomoric narcissistic stunts that really make all of us look silly. As they say in advertising, stuff like this kills the entire category. A winner this week, Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates, an exceptional public servant, a good friend, and he's on the news today having foiled an effort by a convicted murderer to manipulate some key facts in the case in an effort to secure his freedom and secure compensation from the state. This type of manipulation puts communities at risk, and it is a disservice and a slap in the face to the Maryland taxpayer. And because of the quality of his team under his leadership, this plot appears to have been sussed out and foiled. There's still an investigation ongoing, but based on what I've seen and read in the papers, this is a really big win for a state's attorney who is on quite a roll.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We will see you next week.